Hi, and welcome to Map Your Child's Academic Success. We will learn about the MAP growth test as well as the data that the test provides. Part 1 will learn about the test and scoring. Here will be a quick video on the NWEA test.
MAP growth measures what your child knows and is ready to learn. This assessment was created by NWEA, a not-for-profit organization. NWEA was founded in 1977 by educators and researchers with the mission of partnering to help all kids learn. More than 9 million students in the US and 140 countries worldwide use MAP growth. Most schools give MAP growth tests in the fall, winter, and spring. The test is adaptive, which means that it adjusts to each student's responses. If a student gets a question right, it gets harder. If a student gets a question wrong, it gets easier. The test is not concerned with which grade a student is in. It will go as high or low as it needs to. This helps you see if your child is testing above, below, or right at their grade level in all types of subjects, including math, reading, language usage, and science. Students receive an individual RIT score at the end of the test. MAP growth measures student performance with our RIT scale, the most stable, mature scale in the industry. This scale measures and tracks performance across grade levels, so you'll be able to see your child's growth from year to year and over multiple years. Another great thing about the RIT score is that you can connect it to online resources. For example, you can get book suggestions based on a student's reading level and use free sites like Khan Academy, which provide practice exercises based on your child's learning needs. NWEA also has a College Explorer that lets you enter your child's RIT score to see which colleges they can likely get into. Teachers also get a student report after the test. This report explains what the student knows and helps the teacher and the student set goals for learning. Every 3 years, NWEA provides schools with norms. This is anonymous data for more than 10 million students around the country. It tells teachers and students the top, middle, and bottom scores of all these students combined, so they can compare where a student is to other students and help them grow. A teacher can then say to a student, "Wow, you're in the 98th percentile. What kind of work will keep you challenged?" Or, "You're in the 58th percentile for math. Let's look at where you need help." MAP growth improves both teaching and learning by giving teachers accurate information about your child. For more information about MAP growth, visit nwea.org/parent-toolkit.
The NWEA MAP test is given 3 times a year. We give it in the fall, around August. Winter is the December date, and then we give it in March, which is spring. MAP has, as you have learned, MAP has an average test score. So the average test score that they have determined for each grade is these scores here. This is reading in the 50th percentile. This would be the reading scores. And here for math, these would be the scores here, 50th percentile. So that is your average RIT score. Remember, RIT is the name of the score you get. So for this example here, if a second grader here scores a 172, they have a standard deviation, that's what SD means, of a plus minus 15. So you add 15 to 172 or subtract 15 from 172 to give you your average range. That means in reading, for a second grade student, they have an average score of 157 to 188 to be in the average range, which gives MAP goes from 40th percentile to the 60th percentile to be considered in the average range. There's low average and high average, but for the average range, it's the 40th percentile to the 60th percentile. And this score is the 50th percentile. Now, if we look at the same thing for math, right? So this was just calculated in 2020. Like they said in the video, they do it every 3 years. Here's a second grade student for math. They get a score of 175. Now their standard deviation over here is almost 13. So we're gonna round that up to 13. So you get a plus or minus 13 on either side. You get a range of 163 to 187. So that would be in the average range. So if you take a kindergarten student, right, you have a 139 and they have a standard deviation of 12. Part 2, we're going to understand the family report from the fall test. I'm just going to quickly review the fall, and then we'll go into the winter family report. This was the report you were given back in the fall. When we took it in August, you probably received it in September, maybe October. This is just a bunch of information about the test that the video went over and that we've talked about. But I did want to point out this, it says similar students with the same weeks of instruction. So these scores that they got were based on 2 weeks of instruction, which is that fall time, 2 weeks of instruction. Okay, so here we go. So here's the math section of that parent report, that family report. Okay, and this is a growth norm chart. Okay, they're saying from fall to winter, an average student that's a 50th percentile, they're going to say, sorry, I'm going to just go back a slide. I wanted to point out this was the grade. So right now we're going to be talking about 5th grade. Okay, we're going to talk about 5th grade. So here again, right, this is the average norm. So they're saying for growth, for an average 50th percentile kid, they should have 5 points. They should go 5 points from the fall test to the winter test. But remember, now you have a standard deviation of plus minus 5. So they can make up to 10 points of growth anticipated, or they can make less than 10 points for growth, right? This is the 50th percentile student. So here we have, she's a high average student. They're in the 64th percentile, so they're considered high average. So they're in that 40 to 60 percentile range. A RIT score of 114. Here's the national average, right? So the student's slightly above national average, okay? And remember, this test can go up to 350 and taken by 12th graders. So the higher the score, the smaller or less growth the student will make. Let me say it again. The higher the score, the less growth the student will make, okay? To get a couple points is a lot harder when you're higher than when your score is lower, okay? Now, here there's no growth because we haven't taken the test a second time. And then this is what the student would have in grades 2, 3, 4, 5. They will give you a alignment to the Georgia milestones. And this is pretty aligned. So we would say that she would be a developing math student. Okay. Now this is fall. Now we're going to do math for fall. Reading for fall. Okay, so here's the growth chart again. Okay, and for average growth, it would be about 4.5 points to almost 6 points. So again, plus minus 9 points or plus minus 10. This student is already in the high achievement at the 82nd percentile, and this score is 219. Okay, again, 350 is the scale, goes all the way to that 12th grade. So higher the score, less likely for growth or a lot of growth. And this student is performing at proficiency. Again, for fall, I just wanted to point out where we were for fall. So our Parkside mean RIT scores in fall average was 201, and for reading was 205 in 5th grade, and we go all the way down to kindergarten. Okay, we go all the way down to kindergarten. Now we're going to talk about the family report from winter. And this is just telling you that the smaller the RIT score, the higher the growth will be. The higher the RIT score, the less growth it will be based on the scale. See, starting score is above grade level mean. So when you're above the 50th percentile and above that mean RIT score, then you would show less raw growth on average than if you had a lower score. And this is from NWEA documents. Okay, this is a really a great chart to have. So this is the mean scores for winter. So it's a moving target. So if we look at this kindergarten student, this is reading. These are based on the 50th percentile, So they would have an average score of 136 to be the 50th percentile, plus minus 12 on either side for their average range. But now, because you would have 14, or I mean, excuse me, you'd have what, 18 weeks of instruction, you're now moving that. They expect you to grow some, and you should have a 146. And then at the end of the year, it'll be a 153. Okay, that's for average. So that is how you look at this across. Okay, that's for reading. And here's math. So let's say we take that second grader, I mean, the fifth grader we looked at earlier, for math 209, then the next one, they expect you to have 214, and then the last one would be a 218. But that's to stay at the 50th percentile. You can always go above and below that 50th. This is just the average 50th percentile RIT scores. Okay, that's the RIT. Okay, here again, the family report for the winter looks the same, right? It looks the same, except you have this color chart here because now you have growth. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Again, we use fifth grade. We use the same student. So here it is. It's the questions from the top. Similar students. Now we're basing it on 16 weeks of instruction because we've gone through a semester, which is 18 weeks minus the 2 weeks that they had for instruction. So prior to the first test, so there were 16 weeks of instruction in between. Okay, and you remember seeing this, so I'm just going to quickly go over it again. So here's the growth norms. Remember, you went from 5 points. Now they want you were to go to 5 points, right, from winter to fall. So let's see if she did the 5 points. She had a 214 and then a 216. So no, she did not do the anticipated 5 points. But remember, she was in the 64th percentile, so she was slightly above. So she may not make as much growth. We may see more growth in the spring. That's what we would hope. This does not mean that she's not making growth. She did make 2 points, but remember, she is still trending above average. She's now considered lower average, but not, she's still in the higher percentile, but she made 28% more growth than her peers. So more progress than her peers. She's 28% higher than her peers, 28 of her peers. And so that's really important to understand that this is not percentile on the test. This is percentile of growth, percentile of growth. Percentile of the test is on a different test. Or I'm sorry, excuse me. Percentile of achievement is right here, 57. And then this is her percentile of growth. Okay, she made 2 points. Remember, they wanted her to make those 5 points, which she didn't make. Okay, and then here's her range developing. Okay, now let's look at her reading. Let's look at her reading. Okay, so here we have reading. So they wanted her to make 4 points. And then for spring, she only has to make 2 points. 2 points. So let's see how she did. So in fall, she was at 219, and now she's at 231. So she made extreme growth, a lot higher than what was anticipated here, which was what, 5 points. So she made a lot. Here's the national norm. So she's above the national average. She's at the 92nd percentile, and she's at the 95th percentile for growth. That means 95. She was higher than 95% of her peers in growth. Okay. So she did make a 12-point gain. So we shouldn't see, I would not anticipate her making a 12-point gain in spring, because remember, this test maxes out at 350. So if she's at a 231 in 5th grade, her Lexile level is probably high school level at this point. And so we don't necessarily need to give her high school level text in 5th grade to challenge her. What we really need to do is give her text complexity, so the text would be more complex. Going back to that math, I'm sorry, I didn't mention this, but I'm just going to go back really quick. On this slide, this is where the teachers will look at the skills and really hone in on how they can give the student growth, or skills, so she can work on her growth. So I just wanted to point that out. Sorry, I went back on that. So then here, this is where she falls in distinguished for milestones. Okay, so that's how to read that, that's how to read that report, those two reports. Okay, here is just kind of how how is Parkside falling with the district and national? So here are those national scores we said. That's the mean, that's the mean score that we said, that is the average score. And then here's where the district is falling, 203. And then here is Parkside, 213. So this is for math. Okay, this is math. And then here's reading. If you notice, we're a little bit below in kindergarten, but remember, this is a computer adapted test, and they actually have some of the kids drag and drop items. They have you manipulate items on the test. So what we are going to do is there's some practice tests, and we can send this link home where you can practice. It has about maybe 6 questions. And so we'll just make sure that the kids all have some practice, and that, make sure the environment is ready. But remember, they're little guys taking this assessment. So we want to factor that in. But they're right, they're really close, just right there. So if you notice, math is a little bit lower, which nationwide we're having that with COVID. So we've been doing a lot of work on our reading and math this year. Okay, part 4 is just some sample questions. A lot of people ask, well, what does the test look like? So here's what some sample reading questions look like for this band, for this informational text band. This is for the test for 2.5. So you have to read this paragraph and answer the question. As you can tell, the paragraph goes from small, short and 161 to a 230. Okay. And then here's math 2.5. So it goes from adding and, odd numbers of basketballs. Click on all sets, right? So some students are used to just having one answer. So it's really getting them prepared to take the test so that they know how to correctly answer the questions. And then here's for reading in the primary grades. These are all read to them. You can see the speaker. These are read to them. Okay. And now this is math. Again, it's read to them, and they have some, look at the trucks. And so 2 trucks. So it gives you some aids here to look at, some supports. Okay, if you have any questions, if you want to talk to us on the phone, if you want to email us, go ahead, please do so. This is Ms. Harris's email at tmharris, and Hugh Gihari, myself, is M.A. Gihari. Also call the school and leave us a message, or call us in our offices. It's 404-802-4100. Thank you. And if you have any questions, let us know. Thanks.